This is Burn Hollywood Burn by Public Enemy. One of our great teachers in the late 80s, Public Enemy, because by the
Especially
time,
Chuck D.
Yeah, especially Chuck D. Perhaps not Flavor Flav.
I was going to say, I didn't.
But kind of, Take a Nation of Millions, going into Fear of a Black Planet was as good as the Clash, going from the first Clash album into London Calling. It's just one of those periods of a band which is just unshakably great. They just peaked at the right time, and we were kind of in a strange position. We were in the valleys of South Wales, we were born in a very working class area, but we had these two kind of these two kind of like teachers at that point. We had Guns N' Roses and Public Enemy. And you couldn't get two more diametrically opposed bands in terms of style or content, but they both just seemed to make so much sense to us. You had the articulation and fury of Public Enemy, and you had the strange kind of rock and roll new adventures of Guns N' Roses, and we just took inspiration from both things. And I think this lyric, "Burn Hollywood Burn," is just so uncompromising but articulate at the same time. And we used to have a motto, there is eloquence in screaming, and I think Public Enemy, absolutely proved that to be true.
I think, Chuck D definitely taught myself and Richie, who obviously write the lyrics, not to be afraid to try and get lots of words and lots of serious content. Sometimes it's a bit awkward, kind of ramming all that into a song, but he kind of taught us to be fearless and brave with it, really. And when it does come off, it's the best thing ever. Sometimes, yes, it might sound a bit forced, but
that's cool.
Exactly. I'd rather be brave and fail than never try in the first place. Okay, next up we have the majestic Nick Cave with Jubilee Street off his most recent record, which I have to admit is probably my favourite Nick Cave record. And kind of, I think with a man and a band with such an illustrious past, you kind of have ups and downs, and you weave you in and out, but there's just something really intimate and intense about this record. And he really relocated to Brighton in the UK, and Jubilee Street, I think, is a street in Brighton, and just his lyricism seems to have changed. It's really observational and wry. He's always been a brilliant lyricist, undoubtedly, but it's less fury and less anger on this record. It's just sort of sedate and beautifully paced. It's kind of the sound of Brighton.
Again,
it's a weird thing.
From our teenage days, remember Nick used to listen to Kicking Against the Pricks a lot.
I loved Kicking Against the Pricks.
Which was a cover album. Obviously, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds did. And we had a free video with the NME. This is before the days of MTV, where we could see any kind of music videos of any note in our houses. And with this the free video from the NME, there was we watched Nick the Stripper by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. No, Birthday Party, wasn't it?
It was birthday party, yeah.
And we used to watch that video over and over again. The hideous insect.
It was kind of unlistenable, but brilliant.
Yeah, it was really good. So he was always there. There was something about Nick Cave that you just thought, you kind of wondered how long he'd be around because of his lost days in Berlin and stuff like that.
And Brazil. I loved it when he just went off to Brazil for a few years.
And here he is. This album now is probably one of the biggest successes he's had for a long time around the world. So he probably wouldn't want to be called this, but he is the great survivor.
And anyone who looks that good at his age, you got to give him everything.
Probably hates us, but no big deal. This track's called Tonight the Streets Are Ours by Richard Hawley. And very neatly, Richard Hawley's sang on our new record, which will be out later this year. He sang on a track called Rewind the Film. And that was an amazing experience because I think we all know that Richard Hawley is a great singer of a song, kind of like besides actually being a great songwriter. And he came to our studio in Cardiff. He just drove down from Sheffield, and he came down to our studio in Wales, and he did the song in 3 takes. And it was a blessed relief, really. We've had experiences of other singers, singing our songs before, and like Nina Pierce from the Cardigans, and them just fitting straight into the band. And this was no different. You know, he did the song in 3 takes, and he just breathed new life into us and the song. It just goes to show sometimes it's just good to sack the singer and get somebody else in. And he's just one of those great phenomena that kind of doesn't happen anymore. He's one truly working class, idealistic, and sometimes slightly drunk kind of musician. He's just kind of you know, it's the kind of guy you just want to go out with and have a good drink with, because he knows everything about music. He can hold his drink, and he's supremely talented, and he's just a true gentleman all round. So
it's a really good story as well, because it kind of, this sort of success came late in his career, you know, and I think he's perfected his art, and the way he kind of sort of uses Sheffield as his inspiration, I really admire, because it's much like us coming from Wales, it might not have come across as the most fashionable of places, but Sheffield's produced some of the greatest bands ever, from the Human League right through to the Arctic Monkeys, wherever.
Def Leppard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just really the way he documents certain areas of the city, I think is really beautiful, and we owe him a lot.
This is Richard Hawley, Tonight the Streets Are Ours. This is Sweat in Bullet by Simple Minds. This is early era Simple Minds. For any of you out there that are thinking, why is he choosing a Simple Minds track? Simple Minds just went through a kind of a mutation, and they end up becoming a completely different band to the one that originally started. But this is from the early era Simple Minds, when they were a very experimental, kind of cold, glacial, kind of like European experimental band. And this track in particular was them just mastering avant-garde white Scottish funk at its best. And I can't really overstate what an influence early Simple Minds was on me. Again, they had a suite of albums that were just unassailably kind of like influential on me, from Real to Real Cacophony to Sons and Fascinations to Empires and Dance. They truly were one of the most original bands in the 80s, before they became a stadium band. And yeah, just probably some of my biggest childhood heroes, really.
And I thought, you know, at that era, I almost thought they were too pretentious. I didn't quite get them until sort of New Gold Dream, Sparkle in the Rain era. James was absolutely obsessed, to the point where he tried to look like Jim Kerr, had his funny check trousers on, like Jim Kerr, and a side part in. It's a kind of subliminal influence on us, but it is a massive influence, and this may sound complicated, but we've made another record which is coming out next April, which is a very kind of krautrock European bass heavy record, which you can finally hear the influences of those early Simple Mind records. It's taken us 12 albums, but if you've got the patience, come next April, it'll come shining through. Yeah.
So this track is called Superstition by Stevie Wonder. And I remember kind of getting into the album Innovisions when I was about 16, 17. I remember upping the stakes a bit and trying to kind of learn some of the chords on that record. And even though the song Duke is not on Innovisions, I remember trying to learn the passage off that. Which is kind of really complicated, kind of like diminished fifth, kind of like some kind of weird scale. I just remember just realising that there was an organism, there was an organic nature to Stevie Wonder's music which I couldn't quite figure out, and that's when I realised that he played most of the bloody kind of instruments on his own records half the time. You know, he was an amazing drummer, he was an amazing bass player, obviously an amazing keyboard player, an amazing singer. And
not a bad lyricist either.
Not a bad lyricist either, yeah, in terms of documenting the kind of like the African American experience in America, etc. One of the first to do it in a very unflinching way. And I've just always kind of returned to a bit of Stevie Wonder, just to try and have a bit of insight to something which I know is not natural to me. So another one of those great teachers that I just kind of go back to now and again, whether it be The Secret Life of Plants or Innovisions or wherever. You know, it's just one of those musicians that you kind of do look at.
There was two records really. It was What's Going On as well, which James, you know, I was a little bit, not dismissive, but I was kind of baffled with, 15-year-old kids growing up with punk and rock and indie, and James was kind of broadening his palette a lot further. But it soon quickly became apparent that those two, again, had the kind of lyrical depth that we were really searching for as well, and Fearless, and I think Innovisions as much as anything. It is just sheer and utter talent. I mean, there may never be a more talented musician all round than Stevie Wonder. It's just pure brilliance. Hello, I'm Nicky Wire from Manic Street Preachers. You're watching Rage. I hope you're still with us. I know it's getting late. You might be a bit tipsy, as we say back in the UK. But this beautiful marathon of deviant and seductive music has a few more hours to go yet, so please stick in there.
So get your coffee on. I know you're proud Coffee Nation. Do your best and keep up with this vinyl orgy.
Hello, I am Nicky Wire from Manic Street Preachers.
And I am James Dean Bradfield, and you are watching Rage. Hello, this is JDB from the Manic Street Preachers.
And I'm Nicky Wire saying good night after this marathon of this musical extravaganza from our youth, from our future, from our present, from our past. I hope it hasn't been too painful for you. 14 years ago, we did it when we came over first to Australia, so what will that be? 2027 when we come back next time. So if you can put up with us, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in 14 years. Love ya.
Have some oxygen tanks ready for us.